Welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition, we'll be discussing repositioning Nigeria's power sector for national productivity. Joining me virtually for this conversation is Mr. Adetayo Adegbemle. He's the Executive Director of Power Up Nigeria, an electricity consumer rights and policy advocacy organization. It's great to have you on the conversation, Mr. Adegbemle.
Good morning, Otto.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Power sector is very critical to the growth and development of any country. And let's begin with the state of distribution companies across the country. Can you bring us to speed with the initiatives around metering? What's really happening? Are we making impact? And in addition to that, recently the federal government was talking about recapitalizing the distribution companies, 11 of them in the country. What is your take on this, even as states are asking for equity in this regard?
Each one of these metering schemes have their individual unique features and challenges. MAP, for instance, from day one, we have said, interestingly, as one of those that pushed for an independent metering service provider that eventually came up as MAP in 2019, I was very, very vocal about it, and until they eventually came up with it. If I made the presentation to the then Minister of Power, Works, Housing and Power, Babatunde Raji Fashola, which eventually, he had to ask the regulators then to work on. But immediately, even they came up with the regulation, we told them it's not going to work because the main idea has been defeated. If you're giving it to the discos that initially did not meter people, they still have their interests. They still, all the limitations that we thought we were trying to bypass were still, enhanced by that policy, by that regulatory framework. Then we have the National Mass Metering Program, which under which the federal government in phase 0 installed about 1 million meters, not up to 1 million, but that's probably the most effective metering program that the federal government has come up with. Then we have the meter acquisition fund program that the MAF, that the regulators, what they do with it is to collect a portion or a percentage, I think 0.9% of market collections by the discos, and they put it. And the first disbursement that they made was about 20 billion naira to the discos for them to install about 250,000 meters to Nigerians. I know that one is ongoing. The presidential metering initiative, that one is still of a big challenge to me, and I think I've spoken about it on several platforms. Whereby federal government promises to meter how many people, but unfortunately, till we speak right now, there is no regulatory framework. There is no policy framework around it. Everything we know about it, I just comment from the essay to presidency on energy, and one or two comments from the Minister of Power referring to it. There is no document that talks about what the objectives are, how they're going to achieve it, the timeline for the achievement. The first batch of 70,000 meters under NMP phase 2, which was the World Bank loan to acquire 1.2 million meters, was they promised that by April this year, 2025, the first batch of 70,000 meters will be in the country, and further 200,000 meters by May. As we speak, nobody in the industry has seen 1 meter from China. Again, that NMMP phase 2 World Bank sponsored 1.2 million metering project is also something that we have spoken about. It's how can you be taking World Bank loan and you are issuing the contract to the Chinese companies to come and supply us? Of what essence? I don't know how they came about, or we got ourselves to that position. It is strange. We have local meter manufacturers that I believe federal government should be encouraging so that we can be self-sustaining. And again, that now leads me to, if we say that all these programs have not been successful, what are the reasons? Many of the metering program initiatives by government are just avenues for individuals to make money, avenues for a few people to make quick money and walk away, because nobody asked how many meters the program said they will install initially. Nobody asked how many are installed or officially. There's no consequences for mismanagement of such public funds. So we've been saying government should even take a step back from funding such initiatives, because it's an ongoing thing. It's like government saying they want to be cooking and be feeding people every day. It doesn't make sense. Why don't you allow people to be able to cook and feed themselves? So we've been saying that all these federal government interventions, they should take a step back, come up with a policy that actually encourages private sector participation, that puts forward how a private sector can make their own investment in resolving the metering issue and make their profits from such investments. We cannot continue to do all these sachet solutions, sachet approach to solving the problem. We need to be able to break it down, allow private investors to come, give them timelines, give them guidelines, create a policy that promises profits on their investment. You can easily see it that, if it is per kilowatt hour, we're going to be making 2 naira. Let everybody be in a pool. Luckily, right now we have a power sector that all accounts are escrowed with the CBN, and all market participants and operators comes to that pool to come and take their funds. Why don't you create such an avenue? After all, what we say we are doing is power sector reform. So if we have tried to use the discos, the people that bought the discos originally, and they've proven that they do not have enough funds to meter Nigerians, why don't you let's excise that from the contract, whatever contract they already signed, and allow private investors to come in on, I actually call it meter franchising model. So, all I need to do is take one franchise area or take one feeder area or something. I have 6 months to complete metering this place. I have 3 months to complete metering this place. And guess what? Because my money is tied to the usage of the meter, my money is tied to the use to consumers using that meter. What do? I will make sure that the meters are not bypassed. So if you tell me there's a 5-year gap for me to make my money back, there's a 10-year gap to make my money and make profit. An investor will look at it, put it on spreadsheet. So when you are able to take this thing away from the board of directors of these discos, and you create a regulatory framework that shows clearly how this money will come if I make my investment, a lot of people will come in. Then we can solve this problem. And don't also forget, let me also add this, that metering is not a one-time thing. It's not that we have done it this year, then we don't need to do it. It's another 3, 4, 5 years. Those meters will get burned, a lot of things will happen, they need replacement. It's an ongoing thing that we need to build an ecosystem around it and encourage investment so that we can push people into it and we can solve that problem directly. Not all this sachet approach that everybody has been doing because we want to make small money and because government is not going to call you back and ask you questions or you are responsible for the failure of a project. We can go away from that and actually open up the market to investment and allow people to come in from all over the world to come and solve this problem for us instead of this sachetizing we are doing.
Now, in addition to that, the Nigeria Electricity Act 2023, you've highlighted the key issues there. Let's look at the role of subnationals in enabling effective pricing and efficiency in service delivery. Looking at the recent Enugu experience, what is your take on this?
All right. I've said it on a number of platforms already. I've done 1 or 2 interviews where I quite, clearly said that Enugu State might be mistaken by what they have done. This is because, you don't regulate or you don't determine the price of a product that you don't produce. So I think Enugu does not have enough data for them to take the decision they have taken. But you see, it's not a it's a win-win. It's not a winner-loser solution here. We are all stepping into a fresh dispensation where states can come and demand autonomy from the federal government in regulating the electricity. This is a path that nobody has walked before. So we are going to learn, we are going to make mistakes, and we're going to learn as we are going forward. But then there are some basic mistakes I believe we should not be making. One of them is setting tariff. The focus for me, if I were to be the head of any state regulatory commission right now, the focus for me is not to upturn the apple cart or to or distort the market. The focus for me will be, what are the consumers in my state under my franchise area? What are they getting? What am I going to do to get investments into the state? What am I going to do to make sure that the rights of consumers under our state is taken care of? What am I going to do to ensure that first of all, we have metering? I mean, I can boast that, oh, my state is the first state to be 100% metered in Nigeria. Those will be my first questions I'm going to ask. The next questions will be, what's going to cost me to achieve this? How am I going to raise that fund? How does it tally into the tariff structure that we have at the moment? How does it tally? What can we, levate on the present tariff structure to achieve what we want to achieve? For me, those are the questions I believe we should be asking. What is my energy demand? How do I cheaply get more energy into the state? So that when I am saying, in fact, it's the national grid themselves, they'll be begging us to come and be buying at any price we want to buy, because we'll have been able to achieve one or two things in the immediacy. So the Enugu situation, it's a good thing, because this is 1 out of 36 states. So we have 35 other states too that are also watching what is going on. It's a lesson. It's going to be a lesson for both the federal regulator and the state regulatory commissions, for the federal government and everybody. Though I'm going to bit fault federal government at this point. And if you ask me how or why, the same Electricity Act 2023 that set up or that allows state regulatory commissions to be set up, state regulatory autonomy, is the same act that demanded that the Minister of Power should come up with Nigeria's integrated energy plan. For me, this is what I believe the energy plan should have also addressed. Unfortunately, if you go through the draft that was submitted to the National Executive Council, which I understand is even under review, that plan does not have any, does not even say anything about regulatory, state regulatory autonomy, or the interplay, how the state regulatory autonomy will now start to, or how they expect it to run. So that was why Enugu State came up with what they came up with, which I still believe they're starting off on the wrong foot, but it has now made it. Funny enough, I think a week or two before Enugu came up with that slashing of tariff. I just did an interview on one of the dailies where I was saying that we are not seeing any spark. Yes, we have about 12 states that are doing state regulatory autonomy, but it has not really sparked investment, it has not sparked any activity. We are not seeing any activity along that line. A week later, Enugu came up with this slashing of tariff. Wow. So it's a good thing that they have done. They have, gingered the conversation, but I would have expected that, or I would rather expect that they should have focused more on how to improve the power sector within the state, how to create state electricity market, how to encourage investors to come into the state, how consumers within the state are going to be protected, how or what kind of resources the state will need, what kind of resources does the state have to generate their own power, how are they going to attract investors into that sector. That's what I would have expected the state to focus on, instead of butting heads with the federal authority on tariff pricing, especially tariff pricing on a product that you don't produce.
Mr. Tayo, the generation segment is the heartbeat of the power sector value chain. Recently, leaders of GenCos met with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to discuss the issues around liquidity and, of course, the debt they are being owed, running into almost 4 trillion naira now. Federal government has pleaded for some more time, but for you, in 2 minutes, what are the critical issues that have to be addressed so that the generation segment and in the value chain is effective? Is there light at the end of the tunnel?
So we have a situation whereby federal government themselves are now trying to run away from the subsidy. That's why they removed subsidy from band A customers and said, since you're enjoying above 20 hours power supply or minimum 20 hours power supply, pay the full cost reflective tariff while we freeze and work on so that they can reduce their rate of exposure to subsidy so that they're able to pay the Gencos and the Gencos are able to pay for the gas that they use to produce this energy. Now, again, let me refer it to the issue in Enugu. That's another thing that I feel it is wrong with the decision Enugu has taken to cut tariff by over 45 naira thereabout. There is no subsidy on band A. So why are they reducing? Why are they removing that 45 naira? Who is going to pay for it? You expect the federal government to pay when they say there's no more subsidy on band A customers? Then you now you now decided to retain the same banding structure that the federal government has. You froze the same tariff band. You are using the same tariff band. You froze the tariff for all those bands down, and yet you are insisting that the federal government should not pay subsidy on band A. The same subsidy that the federal government has removed nationwide. I think that's part of the problem that is coming out from Enugu, that Enugu is trying to put us on. And you see, what happens in this kind of situation is that investors becomes wary. If Enugu is is applying subsidy, no problem with it. Are they going to pay? Can they pay? Do they have the sources to pay for this subsidy that they are introducing? It is that decision, I will continue to say, is not a good decision for investors. Investors, in fact, I've spoken to quite a number of people that owns even IPPs and Gencos, and all of them are like, there is no way we are going to take our money to Enugu because we are not even assured that we are going to make our money back. And for them, out of all the decisions, like I said earlier, for them to have focused on tariff means there is a problem. Because now, who is going to take their money to Enugu? You are going to dictate how much I'm going to sell my product? Well, that's not how it should work. So, on the issue of federal government, the federal government has not paid the Gencos. What they have done is, please give us some time so that we can work it out. These are the more reasons. Even if they issue a bond today and they pay that 4 trillion naira today, if we are not able to right price and open up that sector for investment, what will continue to happen is that in another 1-2 years, you will still hear that subsidy payment has gone to 1 trillion. Then you now be wondering, didn't you just pay 4 trillion some weeks ago or some months ago? We need to holistically look at this situation. Yes, I understand too that the federal government too are also wary because recently they removed subsidy from fuel. They right price foreign exchange, and of course there was a resultant shock, on the market. But we can all see the effects today that everything is balancing out. Everything will also balance out with electricity. But again, Nigerians need to be metered. That's why we need to actually look at the situation from end to end and apply a holistic solution to the challenge that we have on hand.
So thank you very, very much, Mr. Tayo. What's the outlook for the Nigerian power sector in terms of looking at investments and achieving we've not even hit 7,000 megawatts in generation level. There's opportunity for alternative energy sources. And there's also the need to really, like you said, have an integrated energy policy. What's the outlook like?
I've come to one realization that the problem in the power sector is a naira and kobo problem. It cannot be regulated unless you open up that sector for the right investment. And what money follows, investment follows parts where there is profit. If there is no profit, money will not come. Investors will not come. I'm sure investors all over the world are also watching the Nigerian market. They want to see what we are doing. We want to see what we can do. But our policies has not encouraged them to come into the country. So for me, I would say one of the major things I will ask federal government to do is to remove subsidy completely from electricity. market, one, so that investors can find it attractive to bring their money in. Two, many of the things that we are doing are over-regulated. Metering, for instance, like I said earlier, we don't have enough meter. We are doing barely 7,000 megawatts. In fact, what's 7,000 megawatts? When we do 5,500 megawatts, our national grid collapses. We should look at how to address that issue. A lot of our industries and manufacturers are no more in the national grid. We need to bring them back. If you actually desire to have cheap electricity in Nigeria, that's the first thing we should address. Bring back the manufacturers to the national grid. They are the people that can pay for what they are using. They are paying for the alternative energy they are using presently, and it's reflecting on the price of their product. So why don't you let's reel in that fund onto the national grid? I think one of the reports I read last, I think about 2 years ago, was saying that manufacturers spend, despite that some of them are still on the grid, spend over 45 trillion thereabout on alternative source of energy. If that 45, if it's 45 trillion enters national grid, trust me, they can easily give you electricity for free at home because somebody will be paying for it. They cannot close their eyes and do cross subsidy. Not this one that we are satirizing and we are breaking everything down into small bits, thinking that that's how we can easily recover. Interestingly, the national integrated energy plan that the federal government, the Minister of Power did, it focuses so much on renewable energy. For a country that wants to industrialize, for a company that has over 250 million Nigerians that needs jobs, what we need to focus on is how we are going to bring manufacturers back to the national grid, to stabilize our national grid, increase our energy output from national grid. Now, those industries will now be running shifts, stimulating the economy. So Nigerians can actually have jobs to do, so that they can actually now pay the true cost of electricity that we need to. So we need to focus on how to strengthen the national grid. There's this example from South Africa that I use all the time. If you have solar panel on your house, you are going to pay more if you are still connected to the national grid. There's a reason. They want you to use the national grid. They want you. I mean, people don't seem to. A lot of commentators, even our engineers, is interestingly because they tend to forget what or where we should be and where we're coming from. The idea behind national grid is for you to be able to move, transport energy in high volume, crash the price. It's a game of numbers, so that you can crash the price and get it down to end users. But we find out that in Nigeria, we are reversing the whole case now. We are re-engineering the whole thing. We are now abandoning the national grid. People are going to buy gas to generate to generate their own power, which is even sometimes twice as much as what will be on the national grid. So if we want to say the outlook, we should focus on bringing industries back to the national grid, giving them incentives. So that, I mean, the energy that I will use in my house when I have 3 or 4, 5 bulbs and maybe one AC, it's not the same thing that a manufacturing plant that has over 100 or 1,000 staff per shift will use. So we should focus on how to make the national grid clean enough so that manufacturers can come back. All the investments we are investing in the national grid should be to make the energy clean so that manufacturers can come back to the grid. They can become the anchor tenant because they're the one that can wake up in the morning and use 500 megawatts at once. They're the ones that can wake up in the morning and use 1,000 megawatts at once.
Thank you.
I don't think I use up to 50 kilowatts in a day. So you cannot build the grid on consumers like us, residential consumers. It has to be built on industries and commercial customers. So I would expect that the federal government should sit down and redesign a whole policy that says, let's make the national grid come first. So, and for us to achieve that, we need to also move away from the subsidy regime and focus on building a power sector that works. There is no point. I mean, we are all fighting on what? Enugu is the total number of energy that goes to Enugu is less than 100 megawatts. That's what we want to regulate. Is that not a shameful? So if you ask me, I would say we should go back. Even the Electricity Act itself, we should sit down and amend it to reflect that everybody still remains on the national grid. All these local sachetizing and trying to sell water in 50 naira sachet water will not work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adetayo Adegbemle, Executive Director, Power Up Nigeria. You've said it clearly. A very, very tough decision. We have to remove subsidy from the power sector. We've already seen subsidy removed from fuel and foreign exchange. We have to take that bold step. And most importantly, attract the industrial and commercial activities to the national grid. That means we have to rework or amend the Electricity Act. You talked about South Africa. South Africa is even pushing to attract $22 billion investments to boost generation. That means their grid needs to work. Egypt is doing well in terms of generation. So Nigeria has to take that bold step. But of course, like you said, we need an integrated energy policy that is very clear on the grid. Thank you very much for this conversation. And this time, I mean, a lot of enlightening and very clear insights on how we can move our power sector forward. Thank you once again for the time. Mr. Adetayo Adegbemle, Executive Director, Power Up Nigeria, for this conversation on repositioning Nigeria's power sector for national productivity. Thank you once again for the time.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms. Till we come your way again, I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching and bye for now.